900,000 years ago, an alien videotaped his attempt to educate a caveman. The Prometheus and Bob tapes.
Hey, E! They can't with us.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sunday in February. We back, baby. I know we've been gone for a little while, but I hope everybody out there has had a happy Thanksgiving and ready for some football tomorrow. What's going on, Caveman? How was your holiday? How you doing, bro?
I'm doing well, man. The holiday was great. I was able to spend it with friends and family as intended, and I had a good time. And it's good to hear that you had one. You had a great time as well. It definitely kept the spirits up, and understandably, we weren't able to make it because we were doing Thanksgiving activities last week. But happy to talk football and Bills and get back on track here this week.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bills played last Thursday. So not only were we able to spend some time with friends and family, but we were able to watch the Bills, get a little W there. 2-game win streak for the Buffalo Bills here, Caveman, right? You look at it, you beat the Cleveland Browns. I mean, the score ended up being 23-31, but they beat them pretty soundly. They scored 2 touchdowns in garbage time to make it a little interesting there at the end. And ironically enough, we'll get to Gabriel Davis a little later, but we'll talk about that. And then they also had the 3-point victory over the Lions. Now, it didn't look that impressive. In fact, if I was on my Twitter timeline previous to the game ending, or previous really into the second half, everybody and their mama was saying that the Bills suck and that the season is over and that they're not Super Bowl contenders and this and that's. So when you look at the Bills last 2 weeks, like you said, they're on a 2-game win streak. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think maybe their expectations to be lowered a little bit, or what are you thinking?
My reactions have been, I've been taking the small victory route, taking what we can get in terms of takeaways from these games. Understandably, we're taking down teams that don't deserve to be on the same page as on the same field as we are. And it might not look pretty, like you mentioned, but we're still winning these games. And I think as a fan base, we kind of just tune into the 60 minutes they're on the field and forget how much the external factors actually probably play a part. I mean, they had 4 plane rides there and back to Detroit and back home in 5 days. They had the whole debacle with the snow. It was, Thanksgiving as well. We don't know what teams had to do or what these players had to do for the holidays. Who knows what all these guys were dealing with and were injured. And obviously Josh isn't playing to the same level that we know him to play at. There's a lot that's been going on lately. And the fact that we were able to grind out 2 very, very solid wins, we fought, we were a determined football team. And, we got the job done. And even the Lions game, as much as the Lions might, in theory suck, they've been playing very well. They've, their offense has been scoring a lot of points, and we were able to still fight through and get the job done. So I think they deserve a ton of credit for this stretch here that they've gone through, because there's a lot that's been on their plate, and they ate it all up. So I think they deserve a tip of the cap.
Yep, that makes 3. They played Thanksgiving 3 or 4 years, and they won all 3 games now. Of course, beating the Cowboys a couple years ago, beating the Saints last year, and now beating the Lions. So you talk about eating, all everything on their plate. They seem pretty good at that, and it could be pretty cool to see the Bills as a staple on Thanksgiving, I think. Yeah. But I want to kind of not flip it, but I do have like a pretty piercing question that has been bothering me. Right, what is going on with Gabriel Davis? Right. Let me ask you, what's going on with Gabriel Davis? Do you think he still could be like this budding superstar talent, or do you think like maybe we were expecting too much?
I unironically was just having this conversation. Ironically was just having this conversation with a couple of my friends earlier today. And I didn't think I realized it, but I guess I probably do come across as a bit of a Gabe Davis hater, just having the discourse that I was having with my friends. And, going into the year, Obviously, everybody and their mother and Bills Mafia was humongously large on Gabe Davis for good reason after the way he ended last year. But I knew that in the back of my mind that there was this possibility that he's not necessarily one of the best wide receiver twos in the NFL, just because of the amount of talent. There's a plethora of talent in this league. To say that a guy's not top 40 doesn't mean he's bad. There is just that many good receivers. It's just gotten to a point where, yeah, I think our expectations probably were too high. I think people blew his game out of proportion. I would even say at this point, my expectations being lower than everybody else's originally, I think they probably should be even lowered now, just because it doesn't seem like he's, able to help Josh Allen, help the ball move down the field when Stephon Diggs is getting all the attention the way we originally thought he'd be able to. He's pretty much invisible in the short game. And although to Davis's credit, he's obviously excellent deep down the field, from probably 15 yards and beyond. That's where Davis excels. But we don't have a very short, a short yardage guy, really. I mean, Isaiah McKenzie was supposed to be that guy. Jamison Crowder, Khalil Shakir's not been there. Dawson Knox has obviously been invisible. So when we're not able to move the ball in short yardage situations because Gabe Davis is supposed to be that second option and he struggles with that, I think that also just kind of emphasizes, or he gets blamed for something that I don't think is really his specialty, I guess is my point. And that's because he's the second option, or supposed to be, and nobody else is really picking up that slack. So, it's a cat and mouse kind of game with him at the moment. He definitely needs to step up and be more of a factor in opportunities that he can. But he's not been what we hoped, through the first 12 weeks so far.
I got to say, I think the first 5 or 6 weeks he started off, he was like a rocket, like a bat out of hell, just, and he's kind of paced it since then, right? It's not looked as impressive. The thing that really stood out to me more than anything in that Browns game, I look at the Browns game, I'm like, well, we should be blowing this team out, but they were playing pretty dominantly. They were doing what they had to do. They got the win, and they got it, convincingly. It wasn't like the Browns were super close, but they did have, I guess, a Hail Murray chance, and to kind of make something happen there at the ending. And I saw Gabriel Davis there on the hands team, and the ball slipped right through his fingers, and I was like, "Yo, Gabriel, what
are you doing?
What's going on, man? What's up, bro? Do we need to get you a jugs machine for Christmas? Come on. I know. I don't know. But he has all the other intangibles. He can get open. He can route run. He's got speed. He's got, size. He's got the smarts. He's got all the intangibles. He's got all the tangibles. He just drops the ball way too much. I know, I think, what did I see? Something stupid. What he drops, 10 to 17% of his balls or something like that. And it's that is when you look at it, a guy like Calvin Johnson, and I'm not saying Gabriel Davis is Calvin Johnson or Larry Fitzgerald, excuse me. I'm not saying Gabriel Davis is Larry Fitzgerald or could ever be Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, he could, Larry Fitzgerald wasn't the fastest person in the world. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the tallest. He wasn't the most physically gifted person. He was just the most consistent, Larry Fitzgerald, if I'm not mistaken, had more touchdown catches in his life than drops. I don't even think he had double-digit drops in his career. I might be over-exaggerating a bit, but I know his drop number is something stupid low, right? And that's part of what made him great, right? He was always reliable. And I mean, I don't mean to put Gabe in a higher class than he should be, but could you see Gabriel Davis potentially being a Larry Fitzgerald? Am I out of bounds for thinking that could possibly be a thing? If he were to shore up his hands and be consistent catching the ball to the point where his drop rate was 3 to 5%, that's not out of the realm of possibility for him. He could be a Larry Fitzgerald type, in terms of just being super reliable, making big plays. He already makes the big plays. I mean, you talk about if this is Madden, his hands rating is probably 74, but on the sideline it's a 93. You know what I mean? He catches everything on the sideline on the boundaries when he has to make a play. So it just really bothers me because I know he can play better. Same with Josh. Like I know he can play better, so it bothers me when he doesn't. You know what I mean? Because I'm out here having all these expectations based on what you've shown me, and now you're scaring the hell out of me because it's like, all right, like you've been doing this for a little while now. Like, can you really just turn it on when it comes to playoffs or in a big game where you need it? Like, are you just taking a break? Are you tired or bored with the regular season? I don't really know. So that scares the hell out of me. But this leads to my next question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do the Bills need Odell at this point?
I think, as the year has progressed, it went from, I use this dumb analogy the entire time with this whole situation. And just for the Bills in general, I looked at the Bills as a car, as a supercar. I probably said this to you 400 times already, honestly. But we've went from Odell Beckham Jr., the Bills offense being a very nice, pretty supercar, and Odell Beckham Jr. would have been a nice hood ornament to put on top. That's the way it started out. And then as the year progressed, other things started to turn their ugly head. And that hood ornament acquisition suddenly turned into, okay, maybe now Odell would be good as in like a new set of tires, or maybe now he's becoming what could be a new engine for this offense because it's the old one starting to wear out. And it's quickly become, I also think offensive schematical, if that's even a word, changes have been a large issue for us, but we can get to that later. But Odell has gone from being what I've seen as a luxury to almost a need to this offense. And it's quite unfortunate because, we don't really have the named talent on this team. I mean, that's fine. And, going to the year, we saw that as okay because we had so much just solid, reliable talent that it would all just kind of accumulate and make up for that. But now we're looking at it, it's like all that, reliable accumulated talent is suddenly not being reliable. It's suddenly invisible. And we're left with pretty much Stephon Diggs to fend for himself and Josh Allen running like a maniac behind an offensive line that's pretty hit or miss. So it's become a stuttering vehicle. It's pretty much just relying on Josh Allen's playmaking ability, and it seems like a combination of things, whether it's confidence, the elbow. He's just struggling to handle the pressure at moments, and it's all on his back. So eventually, the human being that he is, he's going to struggle. So, Odell Beckham Jr. is becoming more of a need than I originally ever thought he would be going into this year. So 9.
Oh wow, 9. All right, cool.
Yeah.
At that, I kind of still feel like we could win a Super Bowl without Odell, but now I'm kind of like, but I really want Odell. I think the loss of Cole Beasley really, it really just is louder than people will like to admit.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? I know people didn't like Cole Beasley. He argued with fans, and you don't agree with his politics and stuff like that. And I understand it. But at the same time, I kind of feel like that could have all been avoided. I'm sure there are plenty of players on this team and in the NFL whose politics I don't completely agree with. But, if you don't argue with fans, then, none of that is really going to come to light, at least, or not be a public issue. Right. And I think that was really where things went south for Cole Beasley, obviously. Right. But what he brought to this team, he was the biggest safety net in the world. Like, and so you look at him gone now. It started off like, oh, it didn't matter. The first couple of weeks was like, Cole Beasley, who? Cole, like, what? I don't care. But now you look at, down the stretch as things get a little tougher. You see guys like Crowder, who has never stayed healthy, gets injured again. Isaiah McKenzie just completely pissing down his leg multiple times throughout the season now. Khalil Shakir looks solid, but do I want him being the number 3 receiver on my Super Bowl roster? I don't know about that. I like Gabe. I would like to see him do more, though. And obviously Stephon Diggs is him, right? But that actually kind of brings me I asked a question on Twitter, and the poll really kind of shocked me a little bit. I was watching, like, because I didn't get to watch a ton of football Sunday. I was like preoccupied and the Bills didn't play, so whatever. I said, would you trade the Bills receiving room for any of the following teams? This indicates the top 4 receivers from each roster. From the Buffalo Bills, you would have Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, and Khalil Shakir. Right? And these were the 4 teams I gave. I said the Steelers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Dolphins. So out of 60 votes, the 90% is the Dolphins.
Yeah. I think that's got it. Out of the 4 you named, that was in my mind, the clear and above best room. I think that's probably the best room, the second best room in the league at this point, just because of 2 guys. Room? I still think the Bengals are up there.
Oh, that's a fair.
I'm higher on T. Higgins than most people. I think T. Higgins is the number 1 in 90% of teams. And, I think Tyler Boyd's, one of the best slot guys. So I think the Bengals have the overall room slightly over the Dolphins. But, the Dolphins are in a situation where I think if Tyreek or Jalen Waddle went down, God forbid, they would, their offense is completely altered. So that's why I would give the edge to the Bengals. They're still relatively efficient on offense. And, Jamar's been out for the last few weeks. So I don't think that would be necessarily the case with the Dolphins, but anyway.
No, fair enough. So I'm trying to do the math in my head, and it's roughly like if 60 people have voted, it was 63 now. Roughly like 45 people voted for the Dolphins, and 10 people picked the Bills. So that's fair. All right, the Dolphins is fair. The reason I asked this question is because actually, Caveman, before I elaborate on that, let me ask you this. Would you trade the Bills receiving room to any of those teams? You would trade them to the Dolphins, right? You would trade our receiving
to get the Dolphins receivers back, right?
Yeah.
And
top 4 receivers.
Yeah.
Okay. Any of the other teams would you trade? Which ones? Which one?
So it was the Steelers, the
Eagles.
Who else? The Steelers, Eagles, and who?
Chiefs.
Chiefs, no, assuming Travis Kelce's not involved. Unless we're talking about just wide receivers, right?
Just wide receivers.
Okay, so Chiefs, no chance. Steelers, I think, might have had a little bit more of an argument prior to Chase Claypool's departure, but I would still say
Where did he go again?
He went to the Bears. And he's been he's been a non-factor since then. So Steelers, no, even though I really like Pickens and I really like Deontay, but no. And then I don't even remember the other team because they just automatic no anyway. But
Chiefs.
Chiefs, yeah. I'm taking the Bills out of the other 3.
Okay, fair enough. And you know what? Real quick, I'm kind of glad they traded him to the Bears because now he's not going to get a big contract and he can come to Buffalo, reshape his market, and then get a big contract somewhere else after playing a couple years here. All right, I asked that question because a couple days on the timeline there was this argument. My brother Jay Spence the King, he wrote a tweet, and I think Nate Gary quoted it or something like that. Along the lines, it got mentioned that Brandon Beane botched the wide receiver room this year, right? You take a look at it, Stephon Diggs is him, right? Stephon Diggs is Diggs. But they say you shouldn't have banked on Gabriel Davis taking a step up. You shouldn't have banked on Isaiah McKenzie being able to replace Emmanuel Sanders, right? You shouldn't have banked on Jamison Crowder coming in and placing Cole Beasley because he's injury prone and has always been injury prone. You shouldn't have banked on Khalil Shakir, a 5th round pick, right? And James and Kumaro, they was just talking about how Brandon Beane was basically negligent with the wide receiver room this offseason. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Do you remember who said it?
Nate
For
Geary.
before
I know Nate Geary said it. So okay, here's the thing. Jay Spence is my brother, right? That's my boy. So he didn't want to make it seem like we were arguing on the TL because you know how Twitter people can get sometimes. They see, two people argue or disagreeing and they think, oh, they got beef, or it turns into something that's not right. So so he texted me personally and he kind of gave his thoughts on why the other side, as far as Brandon Beane did botch the wide receiver room.
I don't know. I mean, I think botched is a strong word. We went into a year thinking, we've always trusted who we have in our own camp, and that has not done us wrong ever. I mean, it's done us wrong, but not in impactful scenarios, right? I mean, there hasn't been players that we've trusted. Of course, there was like the Cody Fords, and we that was an issue for a little bit of time. Zach Moss is on that list, but these weren't like game-changing poor decisions. As much as they sucked and were frustrating, they didn't make that much of an impact negatively. I think botched is the wrong way to put it. I think the issue right now is, and this is opening up another can of worms, I think it's the game planning, the way this offense is being rolled out, the way they're being prepared. We're seeing Brian Dable with Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, Saquon Barkley, and a bunch of high school receivers move the ball down the field at will. It doesn't, it's getting to a point where, you need talent, of course, but it's about getting your guys open and putting them in the best situations to be successful. We have talent on this football team, far more talent on the offensive side of the ball than the New York Giants do. I would argue that we have more talent than, I didn't have a second example, but, we've seen, the Jacksonville Jaguars have put up points at times this season. We have a better offense than them, and they're able to figure things out with the crew they have. Long story short, it's just a matter of putting your guys in the best situations to be successful. And we have the talent to be able to execute a very, very successful offense. And we saw that early on in the year. So I don't think botched is the correct way to put it. It's just, I think this is more an indictment on Ken Dorsey than poor team building on Brandon Beane's part. So, we're just looking at a room of Dawson Knox, who's disappeared. Gabe Davis, execution issues, but he's not been the impactful guy that we were hoping he'd be. Isaiah McKenzie's, his impact is felt here and there. Of course, we've suffered injuries, which is also something out of Brandon Beane's control. So I think botch is a strong word. I can see why he feels that way, whoever it is that feels that way. But I think this is a lot more on the coordinator than the general manager.
So yeah, I agree, and that was kind of my assessment as well. I think botched is a bad word to use, right? Because you still have a top 2, top 3, top 1 receiver, so you can't botch a room when you have that. You know what I mean? Like botching a room is when you're the Texans and you trade away this what's his name? DeAndre Hopkins for a fish sandwich, right? That's botching a wide receiver room, right? So when I look at that, I look at Gabriel Davis having the greatest receiving game of all time for any wide receiver, you know what I mean, in playoffs, and like him playing pretty consistently well in the into the regular season, into the playoffs, right? You have Josh Allen, who was playing out of his mind, right? You got Diggs, and now you got Gabriel Davis. You have the best training staff in the room. You weren't really dealing with too many injuries last year. Hey, I'll take a flyer on the Jamison Crowder. He's super fast. He can make impact. He got injured again. Damn. All right. Well, we got great value in the 5th round for a kid out of Boise State who probably should have went somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round. Got him in the 5th round. I'm not mad at that, right? Isaiah McKenzie. I thought he was going to be better this year. I did. I really did. I thought he clicked. I thought he was finally ready. I thought this was going to be his year. I was wrong, and I'm not really upset with Brandon Beane for taking that chance because the way they were like clicking last year left nothing to be desired.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, you get rid of Emmanuel Sanders and we'll be completely fine. We'll be just fine with the roster we have without Emmanuel Sanders. And that's essentially what we have, except add Jamison Crowder and add Khalil Shakir. So I can't say he botched the receiver room. That's just It feels a little strong to me. So that was the question I had, and the fact that
can I add one more thing? Because I don't want to lose the thought, because I know that happens too often with me. I think half of what the thinking was as well was, he might have in theory botched the receiver room, but we were looking at Dawson Knox as taking a further step and becoming a larger part of this offense. And he's been, the Dawson Knox, season he's had so far has been so, I'm talking about one of the most underwhelming seasons that we've seen from a Bills player in the last 5 years. He's nowhere to be found coming off of his breakout year last year, or what could be seen as a breakout. He's nowhere to be found. How is Brandon Beane supposed to just, like you mentioned, after seeing what happened last year, suspect that all of a sudden all of these weapons, including one of the biggest weapons we had last year, not being a part of the wide receiver room, was just suddenly going to fall off? It's just not. And once again, that's something that I don't think is entirely on him, and probably not on him for the most part, but his impact is just nowhere to be felt either. So to say that the pass catching group as a whole, I think has failed. Has been failed by a coaching staff, just to reiterate my point. But yeah, I'll let you continue. I just wanted to add that.
No, you're very correct. And I'm glad that you said everything you said, because I agree with what you said. And I also agree with the context you put it in, right? You said Dawson Knox has had one of the most underwhelming seasons in the last half decade. That's probably true. Who's had a more underwhelming season? Maybe second year Dawson Knox. Really? That's you know what I mean? So I can't even think of anybody. Freaking Mario Addison. And he still led our team in sacks. So you look at Dawson Knox, and I say he has had an extremely underwhelming season, and I'm like, I don't understand where it's coming from. But then you also said you don't know how much of it is his fault, and I have to agree, because I don't either, because it seems like everything thrown at him he catches. Like, he has a few drops, but none have been like crazy like it was second year Dawson Knox. So I don't even know if that's his fault. Like, I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know if Josh just doesn't see him. He looks to be more of an outlet guy so far this season, or at least when I see him. Josh is looking downfield, and when he can't find anybody, he just dumps it off to Knox. So that's a great point. And like I said, I love how you can contextualize that. All right, let's do a few more Bills topics before we go around the NFL. Von Miller went ahead and injured himself, got injured. I don't want to sound like a douche. Got injured. Thank the Lord, heaven, and Jesus, and any God that you may pray to that he didn't tear anything. He had a lateral meniscus, a pull or something like that, strain, I think. But 2 weeks is the timetable that was given to us regular people, right? So the Bills, they obviously play tomorrow night. He will not be able to play versus the division rival New England Patriots, because for the next 3 weeks, we have divisional games. We have the Patriots tomorrow. We have the Jets the following Sunday, and we have the Dolphins the following Sunday. So looking at this, you're going into 3 extremely important games, right? Do you think the Bills can and should win these games? Yes, but they can't afford to lose any of these games, because if they do, then you run the risk of one of these other teams jumping you, and then they control their own destiny as far as winning the AFC East, right? So how big of an impact do you think the lack of Von Miller will put on this Bills defense going into this really tough stretch?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a bit of a different defense. I think our defense has done an exceptional, and I mean exceptional job. It's looked like at times that they're getting shredded, which they are. But whenever we've needed them to make a big play, they have made a humongous play. They're the reason. I've been saying it since week number 1 against Los Angeles Rams. They are the reason why we have an 8-3 record. They are the reason why, we had a chance to beat the Dolphins on a game-winning drive. They are the reason why we had a chance to beat the Lions on a game-winning drive. So, they are the backbone to this team, and losing another piece, especially being Von Miller, is huge. But at the same time, this is not to downplay the impact Von has had. Let's be clear on that. But it just seems like no matter who we lose, we're still figuring it out. It just seems Leslie Frazier's in this mindset this year where I don't care who I have. I don't care what it takes. I have the scheme. I have the game plan. I have what I need to get the job done. And I truly believe that Leslie Frazier is going to be able to, once again, put a defense out there that is able to do its job enough for us to win a game, even if Von is out. So huge loss. Don't get me wrong, but I still believe in Leslie Frazier to get us through this tough stretch defensively, at least, even if Von Miller is taking a couple weeks to heal up.
Yeah. Let me ask you, how do you think that impacts our chance to win these next 3 games? Or do you think it has any impact at all? I mean, obviously it has an impact, right? But do you think our percentages, our likelihood, our chances to win these next few games decreases based on his injury?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, we're playing against the Patriots and the Jets. These aren't the most pass-heavy football teams, so I think having Jordan Phillips and Ed Oliver up front is going to be, a very important thing. And as long as nothing freakish happens, and we should have them for these next few weeks. So I think that's going to be at very large importance for the Bills defense. But I would say it's very matchup dependent. I think I would be a lot more fearful if I knew we wouldn't have Von Miller against the Dolphins than I am fearful not having him against the Jets or the Patriots. And that's not because they haven't looked like decent teams this year, because to a lot of people's surprise they have, but just because of the way that these teams operate. And granted, Mike White is now under center for the Jets, but I think they're very reliant on the run game a lot more than a team like the Dolphins are. And that kind of is what phases Von Miller out of the game at times. And, running away from him or running up the middle and keeping the ball, away from his reach is how you take a dominant pass rusher like Von Miller out. So I think our chances probably drop 7 to 8%, for these 2 games. But like I said, if it was the Dolphins game, that would be where my real concern would come in.
Absolutely. And we are going to need that guy who was voted Defensive Player of the Week this week, Ed Oliver. We're going to need a lot more of him in the coming weeks if we expect to win some games without the presence of Von Miller. All right, let's go ahead and get into a recap of last week, right? Thanksgiving Day had a couple of great games. Buffalo Bills obviously defeated the Detroit Lions. So that was pretty cool. We talked about that a little bit. I won't even say underwhelming win, right? Because it was a hard-fought win. Like, them boys came to battle. When I tell you, like, people was talking about how Dane Jackson kept getting cooked. He was right there on like most of the. I mean, there was a couple times where he did get cooked, right? Yeah. But like for the most part, he was on the receiver like glue. Receivers was just making crazy great plays, like, and that's the thing. Like I talked about, I think I sent out a tweet. I was like, if the Bills if the Bills corners could get their heads turned around on defense, we would have 97 interceptions this year. Like, it's such tight coverage. You know what I mean? Like, they are playing very, very well. The receivers is just playing better for some reason. They choose the Bills to go up and make absolutely crazy catches. So I don't know what's going on with that. But Bills win by 3 points, get that Tyler Bass field goal. And they scored in 23 seconds. So not quite 13. But if we didn't score there, would have been a lot of a lot of people talking trash about how the Bills can't score in 23 seconds. Scored on in 13, so at least we didn't have to deal with that. Next game that was on that night, it was the Giants versus the Cowboys, right?
Yep.
All right, and I know the Giants lost. I think the Cowboys pretty much stumped them pretty bad, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did.
If I remember
it was like
correctly.
a 20-point win or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then the final game was the Patriots. They played
The Vikings.
Oh my God! Yes, they played the
Yeah.
Vikings. Dude, I need your top 5 receivers right now.
Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. As a Bills fan, this is really hard. Stephon Diggs is probably at 3, but Devontae Adams has, granted he's not with Aaron Rodgers anymore, but he might be on a bad team, but he is having a fantastic season that's going, it's flying heavily under the radar. So I'll still go Steph at 3. I think I got to put Devontae at 4, and then I'm putting probably Cooper Kupp at 5. So I feel like it changes all the time. It's hard to have a consistent list, but my top 2 right now are Tyreek and Justin Jefferson, and I will happily have this discourse as long as we possibly can, because I know there's a lot of Justin Jefferson believers out there right now that think he's the best guy, and rightfully so. But I'm still on Tyreek's side for now.
All right, that's fair. Kind of got to beat the best to be the best. I mean, Tyreek Hill's been playing absolutely phenomenally for the last 3-4 years, so you can't be mad at that. But Justin Jefferson is, wow.
I know.
Like, I could quarterback the Vikings today. I just go out there and throw it to 18. Like, where he's at? Oh, he over there. Throw it over there. Like that. Yeah. So that's pretty much what he's doing, but it's working. So more power to them. They beat a division rival of ours, so that's pretty cool. The Dolphins beat the Texans 30-15. The Bengals squeaked by the Titans 20-16. They're such frauds, bro.
Would you be mad Can I cut you off and go back a game real quick?
Go ahead.
Would you be mad if I was rooting for the Patriots against the Vikings because I wanted to see Kirk Cousins rot? Like, I was so pissed off when the Patriots lost that game. Like, I was genuinely mad. I was mad. I was rooting for New England the whole time.
I'm not mad at that because I met a friend. Like, so my girl had a friend and she has a husband, right? And her husband was like super cool. Like, we hit it off for Thanksgiving. We were playing football and, drinks and playing games, and it was a whole family thing. So he turned out to be like a cool vibe, right? Of course, he's a Patriots fan, right? So that's like, oh man, you finally meet somebody cool, like, and then, he's a Patriots fan, right? And so I was looking at that, and coupled with, like the pain and the passion that was in his like voice whenever they did something. I was just like, man, and I was a little drunk. I was like, man, I hope he, you know what I mean? I hope they win it for him. And then coupled with that, I'm still a little hurt from the Vikings. I don't think that the stomping they took last week got all the pain out yet. Still a little salty. So I kind of wanted them to suffer a little bit more. So I'm with you there. I don't. Yeah, I kind of was rooting against the Vikings.
I already hated Kirk Cousins and the Vikings to begin with, and after what they did to us too, I mean that is amplified my hatred for that freaking franchise tenfold. I mean, Mac Jones was out there dealing. He was having himself a week, and I was happy. I was loving it every second of it. And then that Hunter Henry. Did you think that Hunter Henry catch? Did you see it? Did you think that was a touchdown?
Listen, yes, I thought the Steelers one was a touchdown, though. Like when they did to the Steelers, did it to the Patriots a couple years ago. Like, if you have the ball and you can have the wherewithal to extend it, like I feel like that's a catch to me.
If on the goal line, I mean, I get the rule, and people have been yelling at me. It's the rule. This, that. I don't give a shit about the rule. The rule says, as far as the goal line goes, once the ball is in possession of a player and you break the plane, it's a touchdown. He had control. He broke the plane.
That's facts.
I don't care if he slightly bobbled it. I don't even think the damn thing hit the ground either. I don't think that thing hit the ground. And if it did, the ground did not aid him in the catch. He had control of it. That pissed me off. That pissed me off. Then they ended up losing.
It pissed off my boy Jose pretty bad too. He was like, touchdown! And then like, he was kind of quiet for like a good 5 minutes. And I was like, what happened? And he was like, they called back the touchdown. I was like, oh, damn, bro. I'm sorry. But no, but I mean, it is what it is. The Vikings are going to get theirs. I'm sure they're not going to run the table and make the wow, the NFC is actually pretty wide open. They actually could. Wow. I can only think of one team that I really would be confident could beat the Vikings today, and that is the Eagles.
I think
that's scary.
Good. I think
they could, but I'm not confident in it. Oh, they already just whooped their ass. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. They beat them 40-3.
They just beat the dog out of them. like that. They took it behind the shed, man. That was bad.
Yeah, they did.
That was bad. All right. Next game. The Jets beat the Bears. Oh, caveman. My boy Zach Wilson. Not my boy. I don't know why I said that, but the boy Zach Wilson. He threw 9 completions, and they punted the ball 10 times. Came out, they asked him, hey, man, you think you let down your defense? He said, no. I ain't let them down. We all lost this game as a team. Got benched. They kicked him out of there. They got him out of there. Imagine your team is 6-4, and now you're getting benched because you just couldn't, take it like a man. So it is what it is. Mike White came out and, hey, he said he should have been a number 1 overall pick in that draft. He played like it, dog. 22 of 28 for 315, 3 tutties, and 0 picks. I mean, are you worried about Mike White for next week after we play the Patriots this week?
I'm not worried. I guess we'll see it because he did this last year too. He stepped in and he threw for 400 something, and then the next week he threw like 4 interceptions. So we'll see how he does against the Vikings this week. But as much as I want to see him suck ahead of us, I want him to tear the Vikings apart at the same time. So I'm having a very difficult time deciding what I want to see, but I wouldn't say I'm worried because I don't think the Vikings defense is good for one. So even if he does go out there and slice him up, I think they're half the defense that we are. So I still wouldn't be worried in that sense, but he definitely makes the team better. I mean, there's no question about that. The Jets are a solid football team from top to bottom. The quarterback position was pretty much the only question mark at the moment. And they have a guy that, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, they'll be competitive every single week. And, as long as he's able to move the ball efficiently, he doesn't have to throw for 315 yards to win, but he also can't throw 9 completions for 75 yards and, in a losing effort. So he's the balance that I think they were looking for, and they don't really need, a superstar under center there. So I'm definitely more worried about them with him, but that doesn't necessarily make me worried about them to begin with either. So
that's a
weird team.
That's a fair point. Jets are definitely good enough to get it done without their quarterback winning it for them. So all they really need is a decent game manager, and they'll be set. And that could potentially be what Mike White is, even though he didn't play like a damn game manager. 22 or 28 for 315, 3 tutties and 1 picks. That's crazy. That is a Josh Allen like Thanksgiving game. Like that's crazy. All right, this one is a little sad. Panthers lay it on the Broncos 23-10. Caveman, are the Broncos cooked?
Yeah, the Broncos are cooked. I mean, it's getting to a point where, I'm sure you saw the exchange of Mike Purcell, the defensive tackle, yelling at Russell Wilson as he got off the field.
I saw the headline, but I ain't.
Yeah, he was mad, and I don't know what Russell Wilson said, but it was probably some corny ass shit. And Mike Purcell was probably sick of hearing it for the 98th time. Yeah, he probably did. He probably walked on the field saying, "Let's ride," as they're down 20 to the Panthers, and Mike Purcell probably lost his mind. But yeah, This is looking pretty dark for Broncos fans right now, but the saving grace is that Nate Hackett is the head coach, and not because he is the head coach. The saving grace is that there's light in the sense that if he gets fired, someone else can come and turn things around. So if they had a head coach that was confident, competent, somebody that was well respected that everybody knew would do a good job, and things were going this way, then I think there would be true cause for panic. But I refuse, at least at this point, to think that what is going on with Russell Wilson is solely on him. There had somebody with his resume, the pedigree of Russell Wilson, he's put up a Hall of Fame type career up to this point, and suddenly he goes to Nate Atkins's Denver Broncos, and he looks like he's a bottom 5, bottom 6. I mean, there's just that type of page turn does not just simply happen overnight. Something's going on there, at least I think. And if somehow they bring in somebody next year, whoever it could be, and things are still this bad for Russell Wilson, we're looking at probably the worst trade. I might go as far as to say history. I mean, this could go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history if Russell Wilson is truly just this bad.
Boatload for him. I would say that's comfortable saying that if he conceded this way.
Yeah, I mean, and they better pray to their lucky stars that it's all Nate Hackett's fault, because things are not looking too hot for them at the moment.
Yeah. One of 3 things is true. Either Nate Hackett is just god awful and should never touch another football field again, right? Russell Wilson is like injured or like mentally traumatized or something, or Pete Carroll is like a super football genius. One of those 3 things is true. And I mean, all 3 of them look like they are true at the very moment. Yeah. Pete Carroll is out there. They are balling over there in Seattle. Russell Wilson looks god awful. It looks like he fell off that cliff Max was talking about. Like he said Tom Brady fell off the cliff. Russell Wilson found it and jumped off or something. I don't know. But it's not looking good over there in Denver. And that's actually, I'm glad you answered that the way you did, because that was going to be like the way I questioned the question I had for you was going to be like, do you think this team can be salvaged? Like, because they had the quarterback, they have a really good roster. I don't understand why they suck so badly, right? So you kind of answered the question when you said as soon as Nathaniel Hackett is fired, if they bring in a confident and competent head coach, then they should be fine. So thank you for that. Next up, the Commanders defeat the Falcons 19-13. Okay. Browns beat the Buccaneers in overtime 23-17, just in time for Deshaun Watson. So Deshaun Watson is going to be returning next week as the starter for the Cleveland Browns, right? So through 11 games, 12 weeks, the Browns accumulated 4 wins. They are 4-7, and that is what Deshaun Watson has to work with. I mean, realistically, in order to make the playoffs, because the AFC is just so good right now, he'll probably have to run off a good 6 wins in a row in order to have any shot at the playoffs, to get a 10-7 record, maybe 9-8 if everybody implodes at the end of the season. But looking from what you've seen or what you know of Deshaun Watson as a player, but also, put that together with what you've seen from him in the preseason, and also not playing in like 2.5 years, I'm not even going to ask you if you think he can run off 6 in a row. I'm going to ask you if you think he can win 3 of the next 6 with this team.
Man, I know their schedule gets tough down the stretch here. They did beat the Bucs, though, which was one of those games that I would consider tough when I remember looking back at the schedule. But, I also
– Texans, oh, my God, are you kidding me? They played the Texans this Sunday?
Yeah, you didn't know that? That was the whole debate. This was rigged. This whole setup to get him back to play the Texans was rigged.
That was rigged. Wow, that's rigged. So they have the Texans, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Saints, the Commanders, and the Steelers. I mean, it's not an easy schedule, that's for sure. But all right, finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's gonna be tough. Even playing the Texans, it's not going to be easy for a guy that hasn't played in a very long time. And I was even thinking to myself, like, what if when it's all said and done, like there is a real possibility that, by the end of the Browns season that Deshaun Watson does, not so bad, but bad enough where, people are looking back thinking like, okay, maybe Jacoby Brissett actually could have won some of those games so that we could have sneaked into a wild card spot, because I think Jacoby Brissett's played excellent this year. I don't know if you thought he played well against us. when we played him at Ford Field. But I
Oh,
thought Jacoby
absolutely.
Brissett was like he's been doing this on a week-to-week basis. I thought he looked great. We
Amari
took
Cooper
Nick
was
Chubb out
killing
of the
us.
game. Yeah, Amari Cooper, DPJ, David Njoku, he wasn't too much of a factor. But, I mean, Jacoby Brissett threw, I think, 3 touchdowns and 300 plus.
Yeah.
And he looked good. And Nick Chubb was, I think he ran for 19 yards. So he was
Yeah.
dropping back and he was
On
slicing.
11
So,
carries. Yep.
yeah, he's played well. So there's a bar in my mind that is set kind of high for Deshaun Watson to step in and meet. And understandably, his ceiling is far and away greater than Jacoby Brissett's. But I would argue at the same time that the season isn't entirely lost. There's still a possibility that a table could be ran and they make it. They get to 10-7, or maybe they get to 9-8. But having a quarterback that's rusty like Deshaun Watson is, and I'm assuming that he doesn't step in and necessarily play to that level that they paid him to play at. And they continue to stink, and maybe stink even more than they did prior when Jacoby Brissett was under center, because this team has far greater issues than the quarterback position at the moment. And I think these are issues that they didn't anticipate having when they actually traded for Watson. I think they were one of those we are a quarterback away type of football teams. And Brissett's played well enough. The rest of the team has been what has failed Brissett. So another saving grace for the Broncos is that somehow maybe this trade for the Browns could go even worse. But yeah, I think the expectations for Watson should be lower. There's a real possibility people can be disappointed.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people disappointed any way you swing it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm a little. I kind of feel like maybe it's a little bit of bias. I don't like any AFC team, so there's that. But also, something in me telling me he's not going to be very good, and maybe that's like wishful thinking on my part, because I don't like the way it was handled, right? I'm not saying that he did what he did or what is allegedly he did, right? But I don't like the fact that he is playing without knowing, without us, a decisive understanding of what happened, right? I don't like Houston holding something that is that disgusting until it behooved them to use it, right? I don't like the Browns seeing what was going on and then going and trading for that person and giving him the contract that they did. And I don't like the way Deshaun Watson handled the situation. So like I kind of want all of them to be punished in some way, shape, or form. And so I'm like, hey, as far as the Browns go, what will be funnier than him coming sneaking up the joint? And now you've gambled away your future for another Russell Wilson, right? And the Texans are probably always going to suck, so they're going to get what's coming to them anyway. But it is what it is. I'll give it to you. See if you want to answer. You don't have to answer, obviously. But what do you want to touch on? The I don't even know what to call them. The young women who were accusing Watson of what they did, of the sexual harassment. And when I said I don't know what to call them, I meant like I don't know if I should call them victims or not. I wasn't like being weird.
Yeah,
okay?
no, I gotcha. I think
Okay.
I think it's a where there's smoke, there's fire type of thing. I think they're 100%. I mean, who's to say? Of course, we live in a world where there is a reality in which people would fabricate to take advantage of a situation like this. But I mean, we're talking about what was it, 28 instances at the end of the day, and all these stories were similar. All these people were coming forward with, very, like I said, similar experiences. Who knows, maybe one or two at the tail end of it came straggling along saying, something kind of like that happened to me. But I'm not going to sit here and discredit that whatsoever, because the first 25, 26 people, I mean, these were coming out left and right. I don't think, you wake up, see it on your phone, and you think to yourself, oh, here's an advantage for me to make money. Like, I just don't think that's how, maybe that's how a select few of humans work, but 28 of them, no way. I mean, it's just where there's smoke, there's fire. I think Deshaun Watson's a scumbag, pedo, whatever word you want to use. The dude is, he he did. You know, a lot of people are wishing bad things on him, which I won't go as far as to say myself. But I also want, you know, the parties involved, you know, negatively at least to feel some sort of consequence, because I don't think there was any type of justice at all given to those that you know, suffered through, you know, whatever he put those poor people through. So yeah. That's my statement on that.
Yeah, not at all. No matter what amount of money you put in front of somebody, is not going to touch their trauma. In a lot of cases, it might make it worse. So
exactly.
All right, moving right along. Oh my God. Oh, the Jaguars beat the Ravens 28-27. And Lamar was 16-32. 50% is not great. But at the same time, he had 350 plus yards of total offense and a touchdown. So it's like, what do you want from him, right? I just, what's going? When I look at the Ravens, I kind of feel like the Bills a little bit. It's like this team I thought was going to be a juggernaut, but they are kind of like not playing super great right now. What are your thoughts on the Ravens?
The Ravens are an interesting case because, you know, like yourself, I was so high on the Ravens going to the season. I thought they were going to be, you know, the force in the AFC to be reckoned with. Honestly, I had them, you know, touting, I think, a 13-win record. And I thought Lamar was going to have a revenge season, and the defense was going to get healthy, and they were going to be stout. I thought they were putting together a really complete football team. But, you know, you want to talk about botching receiver rooms. The Bills didn't botch their receiver room. The Ravens botched their receiver room. I mean, poor Lamar, you know, of course they got Mark Andrews. You know, they had Rashad Bateman for the beginning portion of the year. But outside of Rashad Bateman, there's nothing. They have James Prochet, Devin Duvernay. You know, they brought in Deshaun Jackson. There's some other guy there too. Demarcus Robinson. It's like they don't have the same type of accumulated solid talent like we do behind our star receiver, right? Just Rashad Bateman. I think in theory, if Rashad Bateman was able to stay healthy for the whole year, then I think the way the offense was built was fine because it's so predicated on the run. Rashad Bateman, I think, is an excellent receiver where he could have done he could have served his role and helped the ball move down the field enough with the receivers they had, but they did not account for, okay, what happens when this guy goes down, because now they're screwed. And now he's out for the year, and they have a bunch of what probably could be waiver wire receivers running routes for them. And Mark Andrews has even been in and out of the lineup. So, you know, of course you can't predict injury, but you have to be ready for worst case scenario. And in the Bills case, prior to the year beginning, I think it was very fair to assume that we had a very solid pass catching core, that if one went down, there was the next man up and we'd be fine. The Ravens had no business believing that whatsoever. In worst case scenario, Rashad Bateman going down, they were screwed. They didn't think about that, and now they're experiencing what they're experiencing. So you want to talk about botching a receiver room? The Ravens botched the receiver room horribly, and now poor Lamar, even though I feel like he's going to have done more at points, has no help. So, you know, that's pretty much why I think the Ravens are where they're at right now.
Yeah. And looking at Lamar, speaking of him, there was a little drama on Twitter, if you will, where, you know, I mean, he obviously said some vulgar things, right? You know, he was clearly frustrated. You know, he basically he basically implied that a journalist has never played football, never touched a football in his life, and, you know, only thing he's ever done, you know, was the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go look it up yourself. You can go look up the tweet yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And they turned it into like anti-gay thing.
Yeah, like
I was like,
the media is so. Oh my god! Don't even get me started on this conversation, man. That pissed me off.
Yeah, so like I look at that and I'm like, oh, like clearly, like you want to talk about underhanded, you know what I mean? Like I feel like you weaponizing our friends and family in the LGBT plus community, to try to, victimize them in a time where they're not being attacked. You know what I mean? In order to throw dirt on someone's name.
Yeah, exactly.
Which being Lamar Jackson. And that just doesn't sit well with me. And I'm kind of glad, I'm very glad that the internet and, everybody was able to see through it and kind of not take it for what it was. It felt wrong when I read, Lamar Jackson anti-gay tweets. So when I saw that, I was petrified because I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. And, he doesn't strike me as a bad person. He actually strikes me as a very good person.
Yeah.
So, when I saw that, I was like, there is no way Lamar Jackson said something anti-gay. Like not only a good person, but also a smart person. Like, why would you say that? You know what I mean? And when I saw it, I was just like, but it is tricky. That's tricky because there are some things that, like, us in the Black community, we use a slang that are recognized as other things elsewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Lizzo said she used the word spaz in one of her songs. And, we see that as something, like, oh, you're going crazy or whatever you about this, and it's a slur for disabled people. I had no idea, right?
Yeah, no.
And she got in a lot of trouble for using that word. So, like, I also want to be sensitive, right? But in Lamar's context, I don't believe there was any anti-gay rhetoric, like, at all. Like, he was just frustrated. Like, and it had nothing to do with the dude. The dude just said the right thing at the right time. And Lamar happened to see it. And he happened to be exactly right. Yeah. So I think it was just one of those situations where you wish you didn't press send, but I don't think it was like any anti-gay or anything like that.
Yeah, this goes for anything that someone can say in terms of, from a social scale. But, if you scroll your timeline and you see anybody else say that, you are not batting an eye. Like I said, it's obviously very dependent on your social impact and your standing in a community. But I mean, you see that stuff. I mean, I read something like that on Twitter, like, I feel like 95 times a day in like NFL updates comment section or in reply section.
Right.
I mean, people are getting into arguments and it starts off cordial and then that's what it turns into. I mean, this is what the internet is. Lamar Jackson happens to be like the rest of us, human beings that just speak on the internet like 95% of people seem to nowadays. So it's just who he is. Like you said, wrong, right thing, right time for that guy to say it. It struck a nerve. But that was like, and thankfully in this day and age, I'm shocked the internet saw through it. But it seems like it's blown over by now. But I'm not surprised that it turned into what it did. I am surprised that they did see through it though, because it clearly was the most just harmless, just frustrated tweet. There's no reason to explain it. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. Like, of course, you don't want your starting quarterback saying that. Regardless.
No, you don't.
Like, I'm not like gonna completely absolve him. Like, of course, we all know probably shouldn't have said that, but let's not turn it into something that it isn't. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. Definitely. Next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders losing to the Seattle Seahawks. Or no, they beat the Seattle Seahawks 40-34. What I'm more interested in is, like, the Raiders. Derek Carr had a pretty good game, 295, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks though. And Josh Jacobs lost his mind. He went for 33 carries, 229 for 6.9 yards a pop and 2 tutties. The Seahawks lost by a touchdown, right? A touchdown in overtime, by the way. Kenneth Walker III, 26 yards on 14 carries, 1.9 yards a pop. Geno Smith, or outside of Marquise Goodwin, who had a rush for 7 yards, Geno Smith averaged the most yards per run. And Geno Smith also threw for 328 and 2 tutties. The Seahawks putting up 34 points off of the arm and legs of Geno Smith. is Gino for real? Like is he for real? For real?
I think it's safe to say, yeah, right? I mean, what else does he have to do? I mean, he's not only putting up the statistics, but he's making throws that, there's probably 20 starters that can't make half the throws he's been making this year. So, I mean, yeah, it's safe to say that Geno Smith is that guy. And to the Raiders' credit, who have been a struggling team, especially on defense this year, they stopped a red hot Geno Smith in overtime. I don't know if you watched the game, but the Raiders got the ball first. They turned it over at midfield. And then I think the Seahawks probably needed 15 to 17 yards to get into their kicker's field goal range. And I think they got 6 and then punted. So, I think the Raiders defense in some regard deserves some credit, and one of those might have gotten shredded, but made the big play type of way, like the Bills. But yeah, Geno Smith's the truth. Like there's no ifs, ands, buts about it at this point, right?
My man Geno is balling. I've never thought that I would be happy to see Geno winning, especially after being drafted by the Jets. But I'm proud of him. And it brings back to what we were talking about. Like these quarterbacks, they live this day in, day out, how to play quarterback, how to be quarterback. Yet there's only 15 to 16 at a time that can do it at the highest level. Out of everyone in this world, there's only 15 to 16 people at a time that can play this position at the highest level. And then none of the backups are learning and getting better. Like you talk about development and the potential and how good they can become. And it's just well, you're either good or you're not. You know what I mean? Either you are a first round pick, you could be a first overall pick. If you suck for the next 2 years, you're never gonna overcome that. You're just gonna suck for the rest of your career. If you're a 6th round pick and you have a crazy breakout, training camp, and now you're the starter for the Seahawks or the Cowboys, and now you're just really good. And I'm just I don't understand that. I don't understand how there's no parity in terms of skill at the QB level. But hey, it is what it is. Chargers beat the Cardinals. They squeaked by on 25-24, another fraud team. 49ers take care of business over the Saints, 13-0. The Chiefs beat the Rams, 26-10. Another fraud. Okay, I'm not going to go that far. And the Eagles went crazy. They had 300 yards total rushing. They went crazy. I was impressed, honestly. They beat the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love looked pretty good. And then Jeff Saturday showed why he shouldn't be an NFL coach yet. Completely botched the time management at the end of the game.
Did you watch that?
I did. And I watched the TL, and everybody roasted him. So the Steelers win 24-17. All right. Actually, go ahead. Tell us what you thought about Jeff Saturday, or just in general.
It's brief. It's a brief rant. I mean, it doesn't take. I get it. He's only coached at the high school level. How he got the job, we still can't figure out. But you don't need coaching experience to have common sense. I think he's getting to an age by now where you'd like to think he has some of it. And based on his press conferences, the way the team has played, it seems like he has it. In that moment, I don't know what was going on. I don't know why he didn't call a timeout when Matt Ryan ran for 15 yards. I mean, Matt Ryan at the ripe age of 38, as immobile as he is, scrambled for 15 yards to give your team an opportunity, and you just stared at him. He probably was just so in shock that Matt Ryan ran it that he just didn't know what to do. I don't know what other explanation there could be, but hopefully he's learned from it. I don't know if I want him to be successful because of the way he got the job, but I guess it's also not. I mean, is it his fault? I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. But nevertheless, bad. Bad. He definitely showed why he probably didn't deserve the job, at least yet.
Yeah. I want to say, Matt Ryan, you should have the wherewithal to call a timeout.
I also thought that.
Taylor.
I also thought that.
There's plenty of people. Am I absolving Jeff Saturday? No, by absolutely no means. That was ridiculous. A 12-year-old kid who plays Madden would have known to call a timeout. You know what I mean? So, I'm not absolving them, but I'm just saying that a couple of y'all need a little more accountability as well, because like y'all could have called a timeout there. Like y'all know what the game is supposed to happen. Y'all could have called a timeout. So yeah. But all right, well, first of all, I want to say shout out to my boy Robbie. I did finally get a chance to meet him at the Sabres game. They lost, so that sucked. But finally got a chance to meet my boy Robbie. So shout out to him. Also, hello, Brooke. How are you? I miss you, Brooke. So we're gonna do week 13, but we're gonna do like rapid fire, right? So I'm gonna tell you the matchup. You either tell me who wins, or you can elaborate on which games you want to talk about more. Sound fine? Sound fair?
Yeah.
All right. Packers versus the Bears.
Packers.
I think Aaron Rodgers, they said he's going to play, right?
I think so. I think he is going to play.
Yes.
Packers, yeah.
All right. Steelers, Falcons.
Oh, boy. Jesus. Steelers, I guess. Steelers.
I would say Steelers.
Coin flip.
Real quick, buy or sell. The Steelers are better than the Broncos.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm thinking about that. Yeah, Broncos can't score more than 17 points in a football game. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm buying it as well. Jets, Vikings.
Got to say Vikings, but watch out for Mike White. Watch out. There might be a little bit of an upset city over there, but I'll give it to the Vikings. Play it safe.
It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if Mike White went crazy on the Vikings.
No, it wouldn't. It would not.
It wouldn't be the worst thing. All right. Jaguars, Lions.
Two teams coming off of, one didn't win, but they still played a good game. I'm going to give this to the Jaguars. Better quarterback, I think, is really the determining factor. Better defense, too, so Jaguars.
I'm actually not mad at Jared Goff. I admire, you know what I mean? Like, you win a Super Bowl with a coach, you lead them to another NFC championship, you are like, his win percentage was something stupid, like 70, 80% or something. And then you kind of get benched, you get traded for, not benched, you get traded for this guy who's never won anything in his life. The guy immediately goes in and wins with your former team. And you're stuck in like the middle of nowhere with a team that hasn't cared about their franchise in like 50 years.
Yep.
So, or an owner at least that hasn't cared about their franchise, because they've had some of the greatest players of all time and they just didn't care. It was like, nah. It would sell tickets and jerseys, but that's about it. So I really admire Jared Goff for having the cojones to just stick around and stick it out and still play at a high-ish level, right? Titans, Eagles.
This game, I think, goes to the Titans. I'll elaborate on this one a little bit. The Eagles obviously looked impressive last week against the Packers, and I feel like everybody's getting wrapped up in the fact that they ran for 360 whatever yards and appeared to destroy the Packers. But, they won by 7. In a game where a team rushes for almost 400 yards, wouldn't you expect the score to be like at least 2.5 possessions? I mean, it just seemed like a disparity. And I think the Eagles defense, partially due to injury, but it's a cause of concern. It would be if I was an Eagles fan. Jordan Love stepped in, 3 plays, touchdown. He was, kind of lacing you up at times, even if his receivers weren't coming up with the ball. And, I guess my point is their defense has not looked great. And, they haven't been able to stop the run ever since they lost Jordan Davis. And they're going against the Titans with Derrick Henry. If they're not able to slow him down and they let Tennessee linger in the game the way that they always do, play Tennessee football, I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility that the Titans win this game. And I think I'm probably going to pick them as one of my upsets. So, and I mean, Jalen Hurts, I think, started off the year very strong, but now he's kind of been, they're relying on the ground game a lot more, where I felt like earlier in the season we were seeing a lot more of Jalen's arm. But at this point, it seems like they're kind of not losing confidence in it, but they're not as confident as they were in his arm earlier in the season. So just something to watch there. I'm going to take the Titans, though.
Not mad at that pick. I don't know why, but that feels upsetty to me.
Yeah.
It does. It just does. It just looks. It just looks. I'm looking at it and it's just like I don't know why. I'm just gravitating toward the Titans there. The Allegation Bowl, Browns Texans.
Browns. I mean, I don't think Deshaun Watson can go out there and be as useful as a traffic cone, and they can win this game. It's going to be just him turning it around and giving it to Nick Chubb. He might have 16 pass attempts in this game. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't throw it all. So give me the Browns.
Actually, to your point, I actually think that they might just have him throw gimmies all game, just so he can have a 17 for 20, game, and he'll look good and all that jargon and all that. So I could see something like that. All right, Commanders and Giants.
I'm gonna go Commanders. I think the Giants are. I think the Giants missed the playoffs. Honestly, I don't know if that's a hot take. I said this a couple weeks ago, actually, too. So, and they've lost the last two. Saquon can only do so much, and when you phase Saquon out, Daniel Jones, with what he's got around him, at least can he's capped off. So, and they're playing against very good run defenses, and they are this week against the football team, who it seemed like their defense is returning to that 2020 form. So, I'm going to take the Commanders and Taylor Heineke's dogs to upset the Giants here.
That is a really good pick. I'm excited to see that. I like that. Giants missed the playoffs. That is a hot take, by the way. Broncos, Ravens.
Broncos, Ravens. I'm going to take the Ravens. I mean, the Broncos can't score, and the Ravens have struggled to score lately too, but the Ravens can't lose this one after what happened last week. So give me Baltimore.
They better win. Or all hell's going to break loose in Baltimore. Dolphins, 49ers. This is a pretty good game. Mike McDaniel's going to coach against his former team.
Oh, boy. I'm going to take the 49ers. Although Christian McCaffrey is questionable, so that's something to monitor. But I'm going to take the 49ers. If there is one team that has a better offensive cast, it's the 49ers. I mean, they're one of the most stacked rosters that we've seen in a long time. So if Jimmy Garoppolo is halfway competent, which he wasn't last week, but if he's able to pull his head out of his ass, then I'm taking the 49ers here.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna before you even said that Christian McCaffrey was questionable, I forgot that Christian McCaffrey played for them, and I was gonna take the 49ers. So yeah, I'm gonna also take the 49ers here. I just don't think the Dolphins are really like that. I mean, I think they're an above average team. Yeah. I think that they have superstar wide receivers, and it makes everything else look better. But I don't know. I mean, their safety, that boy Holland's pretty good. And the defensive line is also pretty good. So they're not, like I said, above average team. I think they're above average team. I don't know if they're a good team. And I think Kyle Shanahan is the best coach in the NFL, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm gonna take the 49ers there. Seahawks, Rams.
Oh, well, I don't think Matthew Stafford's playing, so forget thinking about that. Give me the Seahawks.
That's actually going to be a good game, too. Chargers, Raiders.
Oh, boy. I'm going to take the Raiders. I'm taking the Raiders, man. It might be unpopular, and they probably will lose, but just because of my Derek Carr love, I'm going to take the Raiders in hopes that they always play a good game. All AFC West matchups that don't include the Broncos are always a good game. So I'm going to take the Raiders to upset here.
That don't include the Broncos. I call this the Fraud Bowl. 6-5 Chargers versus the 4-7 Raiders, and I think the Raiders are far and away the better team. I don't know why they keep losing these games. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if Josh McDaniel is just a curse that, when those two letters in front of his name, when that one letter in front of his name changes from an O to an H, it just, they just are cursed. But I do think they're better than the Chargers. And I think that they're going to go out there and prove it. And I don't think it'll be a close game, if I'm being honest. It might be a close game because the AFC West always has close games, but
yeah.
Chiefs, Bengals.
Another good one. I'm taking the Chiefs though. They've been on an unstoppable rampage lately, and and I felt that last year too. And the Bengals came in and beat them, which still pisses me off. But
Twice.
I'm gonna still take the Chiefs. It's Patrick Mahomes is just playing at another level right now. So give me Kansas City.
Can two teams lose?
Yeah, for real.
I would like that.
If
I would like
only.
to see two teams lose. All right. Colts, Cowboys.
Cowboys. Not much thought there.
Yeah. And finally, Saints, Buccaneers.
Yikes. Give me the Bucks, although I do think it's going to be a very low-scoring, close game, and I think Tom Brady just somehow squeaks it out in the end. But it's not going to be a high-scoring affair where the Bucks pull away with it either. So I'll still take them, but could be a very ugly one.
Yeah. All right, guys. And speaking of the Cowboys, I do just want to address real quick Jerry Jones' photo. Jerry Jones saw at a protest for integration between a white high school that was allowing black students in. They're known as the Little Rock Nine. I didn't know very much about this until I saw the story or the picture or whatever the case may be. And I think I'm not necessarily saying that like Jerry Jones needs to have his team taken away from him or anything like that, but I do think that the amount of support he's getting is very contradictory. I think it's very inappropriate. It's quite honestly a slap in the face, if I'm being honest. You look at some of the racial issues we've had lately, and some of the things that were done or taken away from people because they made racist comments or did something. I think Kyrie, all he did was retweet something and he got like blasted, right? So I look at that, and then I look at this. Like, this isn't a racist comment. This isn't like you tweeting something or retweeting something. Like, he was in the fold. He was like in the grassroots of racism. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is more than words. Like, this is action, right?
Right.
And I look at that and I say, some of the rhetoric that he's expressed during his tenure as the owner hasn't been the most like welcoming, or his point where like, oh yeah, he's definitely not a racist. I've never once said that about Jerry Jones, right? The taking a knee thing where he's like, if you take a knee, you're not a cowboy, right? And then, to save face, he has them all go out there and take a knee, and then nobody's ever allowed to take a knee again, right? Stuff like that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And so, like, this picture really doesn't shock me, if I'm being honest. But then when you get, like, people like Stephen A. Smith saying that it pisses him off, and it's like, no, like, history books are there for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, you need to know who the winners and the losers were. You know what I mean? Like, you are on the right side of history or you're on the wrong side of history. 80 years ago, like, me and you aren't allowed to even do this. I mean, Granted, there's no internet, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Like, and that was the norm. That was what people did. I always say whatever society believes is right. And that is how society works, right? And I understand that, but at the same time, you are your own person. And even though it was the norm, there were still plenty of white people that were fighting for civil rights, that were doing this, doing that. I'm not even saying you have to fight for civil rights, but bro, don't be at
don't show up.
Yeah, bro, like that you are actively fighting against it, at that point. So that's why it bothered me. I mean, I know nothing's gonna happen to him, so there's no point in me even saying it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, as far as getting his team taken away or anything like that, nothing like more I'm not trying to say that I hope he dies or anything like that. I'm just saying like consequences, like a David Stern, or not a David Stern. What was the guy, the Clippers owner, who said some wild stuff?
Oh yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, me
but I
neither.
do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so like I don't think anything like that's gonna happen, but at the same time, I don't think he just deserves a pass, right? I mean,
Right.
like at least a conversation needs to be had where it's like like where are your values and morals, you know what I mean? So that did bother me, and I just wanted to touch on it briefly, because I mean, honestly, the story has went away at this point, ironically, right? Of course it has. But I don't know if you want to share your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can only echo everything you said, and I guess the big point that I think is, the reason why it's being handled this way is I don't think anybody's shocked. Like that's the thing. It's like no, I don't think this hit headlines and gained traction. One, because he's Jerry Jones, he's white, and he's a bajillionaire, but nobody's shocked to see this. Like, I mean, out of every owner in the NFL, if you asked you or I or whoever, any NFL fan, who do you think is racist? I think Jerry Jones is probably at the forefront of that response. It's just and that goes back to the whole why they have the rules in place for the coaching hires and stuff like that. It's like because this is just another piece of actual evidence this time. I mean, in the past, you can argue that there was no hard evidence to actually prove anything. But I mean, this is as hard of evidence as you need, regardless of how long ago it was. He definitely believes what he believed back then. I mean, leopards don't change their spots, and I've lived by that mantra my entire life, and it applies here just like it would in any other situation. So I just think, unfortunately, it's just like the nobody's shocked. He's an untouchable and nobody's shocked. So that's why it's just one of those stories that goes away and dies. And that's the sad part about it. But I can guarantee you, there are at least a third of the coaches that probably, if they weren't doing something else, would have attended that damn same rally at that time if they were of age. That's the saddest part about it. And, it kind of goes back to how I feel about the world in general. These things, unfortunately, probably will not ever be gone completely, but I don't think we'll ever see a true kind of shift until that generation is truly gone, as horrible as that may sound. It's just there are still people that lived in that time period on this earth spreading, that type of information, that type of hatred. They still exist here, and they're going to pass it on. And I think as time progresses, it'll hopefully, being optimistic, fade away. But these people exist, and these are who, this is what they believe, and this is, they grew up through it. And they're going to spread it as long as they're here, and they're going to believe it. And it sucks. It's the NFL, and it's integrated in the NFL, as ironic as it is, considering how predominantly non-Caucasian it is, just for all races. I mean, the NFL is so diverse in general. But yeah, I guess like my point is too, it's just nobody's shocked. That's the worst part almost too,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for those thoughts. I totally agree. I think as much as people like hate the internet and it's bad and all this and that, as far as like, what kids are getting into at early ages and stuff. And I get all that. I understand the argument behind that. But at the same time, I do think the internet serves a great purpose in the sense that it allows a lot of people who may not normally have ever interacted with each other. Shoot, me and you, like, like I didn't know you. I didn't know anything about you. You didn't know anything about me. And because of the internet, we were able to come together. And, like we just met for the first time a couple weeks ago. That was freaking awesome. We hung out that night. Me, you, Jake, Jordan, like, stuff like that. So I think that the internet poses the opportunity for a shift. And I think it already has started to shift as far as like people's thought process on race and creed and gender and sexuality and all of it. Like, bro, like if I cut you open and cut myself open, it looks the same, bro. So all that is completely moronic, if you ask me. The thought of racism is the stupidest shit I've ever heard of in my life. But it is what it is, man. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in and joining us tonight. Hate to leave you guys with such a somber note. We won't leave on a somber note. Caveman, give me your game prediction tomorrow. Bills Patriots.
I'm liking the idea that we beat the brakes off of them. I think maybe by some chance that we see an Isaiah McKenzie pop out of periods, because that's what happened the last time. Well, no, it wasn't the last time, but we saw McKenzie tear him up previously, and it was fun. So I'm liking our chances in this game, and we just saw Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins tear apart that secondary. So why can't Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs? So I'm looking forward to a beatdown. I think that's what we can really use to boost the morale here around the Bills right now. We definitely need some type of confidence boost.
Yeah, I agree. And this just popped into my head, but I'm gonna give you guys a little theory time. So everybody is kind of like, oh, Josh is injured, that's why he's not playing well. I hate to bring it to you guys, but Josh wasn't playing well before he even got injured. So that really doesn't answer any questions for me, if I'm being completely honest. Do I think it has something to do with the way he's like short stroking balls and things like that? Yeah, sure. But even before that, it was really at halftime of the Packers game, which I can attest to because I was sitting front row and I saw them come out at halftime and it just didn't look the same. Ever since halftime of the Packers game, it just hasn't looked good. And I remember at the end of after the Packers game was over, I remember thinking to myself, like, I wonder if Aaron Rodgers just like hit up Josh and was like, hey man, like we need, you guys can win the game, but we need to have a good second half to like, root on the troops and make us feel better or something. And they were like, oh, let's run down their throats and, we'll still get the win, but it wasn't as impressive. And I remember thinking that, and then like week after week, like he just kept not playing great. And I'm just like, what's happening right now? And at first I thought it was because of course, I'm superstitious, but he shaved his beard for Halloween. I don't know how many people paid attention to that.
Yeah.
But he shaved his beard for his Halloween costume, and he hadn't been playing well since, right? So I was thinking like, oh, his beard's finally growing back now, so hopefully he gets his powers back. But I mean, not that he didn't have his powers; he's still running over people and stuff like that. But his decision making wasn't great. And then I look back at the Packers film, and I don't know if you remember, but he jukes one guy, jumps out of the way, runs down the sideline at the 2-yard line. He is absolutely crushed. I mean, like, one dude hit him low, the other dude hit him high and slams him into the ground, and he gets up and starts laughing. And I thought to myself, like, I hope not, and I pray he didn't, but, like, is there a possibility that maybe he might have been a little more hurt than what he let on? Like, maybe got his bell rung a little louder than he'd like to admit. And so that gave me cause for pause. So we're like 4 weeks past that or something like that. I don't know exactly how many. I think it's 4 or 5 weeks past that. So I'm hoping whether it's the beard or maybe a potential C-word concussion, hopefully that is past him. And I want to see, and I predicted this, that we would get it for Thanksgiving, but we didn't get it. I predicted that we would see the, 27 of 32 for 350, 4 touchdowns, Josh Allen back. So I'm hoping we see that here with a defense that he's known to run through, and coach who tortured him for the first couple years, and he's been torturing him right back the last few. So I'm hoping to see MVP Josh Allen back. It's not too late for him to win the MVP award, So we'll see about that. All right. Is there anything we didn't get to that we need to get to, Caveman?
Not that I can think of. We covered a lot of ground. I feel like we always do, but tonight we really did. We did a lot of good catching up. So no, honestly, no.
Yeah. I had to catch up because I wasn't here for a little while. Got in a little accident. And then obviously Thanksgiving, but it's good to be back, man. Good to finally get back in the mix of things with you. And yeah, man, we will definitely. Trying to think. All right, so I had something I wanted to ask you. I ask you off air though. So I don't know why I'm telling everybody. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. It's Sunday in February, your favorite Hump Day show. I'm Justice General Rafford. That's my brother K, man. I want to thank you for every single like, comment, subscription, retweet, repost, share. Everything you guys do for us, we appreciate. This is the original network of the official. Can y'all tell that I'm rusty? Like, this is the official network of the original Bills Mafia. And we are out. Thanks, guys.
Go Bills.